Hello, this module is actually going to go really quick. We're only going to introduce basically one new concept, and we're going to keep the challenge kind of short and sweet so you can get through it real fast and move on to the next thing. But it's an important one because it's going to be useful for lots of fun different projects. So what we want to do is we want to introduce the concept of random. To be able to just randomly have one of these lights light up, okay? Or to roll the dice, or make decisions, or eventually when we get into robotics, when your robot hits a wall, so that it doesn't end up getting bouncing back and forth, left and right, you can make some random motions to make it figure out how to get out of a particular jam or spot. But it's really simple and it works really well. So I'm going to start with a hunk of code that we've already played with, something like this, because I don't like to type that much myself. So I'm going to copy. We've got the setups. We got the pin modes all set to output, the little header information. I'm just going to copy that, and I'm going to go ahead and make a new folder or new file, and I'll just close that one. And I'm going to replace my setup, and now I have the setup already ready to go. The outputs, the pins are output. Let's just change this. I'm going to call this my random function introduction, and today's date is the 16th. Okay, awesome. So let's make it do something. Let's create a function, a simple one. Let's call it, let's see, what do I want to call it? Let's call it random. I'll see how it turns red because that's a protected word, so we're going to go with something else here. Random LED. So we're just going to make an LED light up. Alright, and it's going to be super simple. So let's do that by taking and making a variable. Let's make a variable called LED to light. Okay, and we're going to make it equal to random. Alright, and it turns red, so you'll know you've got it right. And then we want to set the range, and it's kind of bizarre actually. You would think it'd be super easy. We've got our things hooked up from pins, or at least I did from this last one, from pins 2 to 9. Well, the 2 makes perfect sense. I want to light one of these LEDs randomly, but oddly enough, you can say 2 to 9, but it actually won't include pin 9 if you do so. So you actually have to do the one you want plus 1. So it's going to be, in this case, 2 to 10. And by the way, we're going to fix that later on when we get into probably the second part of the course. So we've got our random number generated here. And then let's do a digital write. And we want, oops, that darn dyslexia slipping in there. Okay. And we want to digital write the pin that we randomly chose. Let me copy that. And we're going to make it high. Okay. And then let's actually make a delay right here. Variable, so we can change it with a single line. Let's make it 250 to start with, 250 milliseconds. So now we're going to go ahead and do our delay. And then we're going to make it turn the LED off. Okay? Sweet. Super simple. So let's call this function and let's see what happens. Put it in the loop. Now every iteration of the loop, it's going to look for a random pin and light it up. File, save as. I've already moved this into my module 3. So let's call this Random1. And let me load it up. And I'll pause it while it loads this first time. Okay, so you can see it's working fine. It's choosing lights. That certainly looks random at this moment. I can't predict. Let's actually rerun this though and watch carefully and see which one happens. And come on, go a little faster. So I'm going to put my mouse on the first one that lights up. Now again, our frame rate on this thing. Oh, okay, so it starts here. Jumps from here to there. Let's do it again. And come on. I bet it's going to be here. Boom, here to there. Okay? So it's not really random. Alright? We have to fix that. And unfortunately, I'm going to introduce something on faith at this moment. You're just going to have to trust me for the moment, and we'll come back into what actually happens to make this really work a little bit later on, but I don't want to get into it now. We're just going to do it. So, it turns out that when you generate a random number, it's actually going to pull it from an array, a group of numbers inside the memory of this processor here. And that is fixed. But the position, I can rearrange its starting position, and then that'll sort of seed it into doing seemingly random things, or it will in fact be random once I give it a new orientation. Alright, the problem is computers aren't smart enough to be able to just pull something out of thin air the very first time you turn it on, because they just can't do that. Alright, but we can take advantage of a phenomena where a pin is sort of floating, and it's like turning on a TV set to a place where there is no broadcast channel. You get static. Okay, so if we ask it to pull to a position where there's static, well, static is static. It's always different. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to tell it, hey, go turn on a channel. There's nothing there. Let's read the value of that. Oh, it's full of static. Let's read the static, and we're going to use that static to seed the orientation of a random number. Okay, and this is common, believe it or not. It happens all the time. It's not that hard to do. In setup, we're going to put in here random seed. Oh, look at me go again. Turns red. And then what we're going to do, and this is the part where I'm going to ask you to please just do it on faith, we're going to do an analog read. And we'll get into what all that is at another time here. We're going to read an analog pin. Okay, again, please just do this on faith for the moment. Alright, and that is going to seed the random generator with static. And if I load this up now, you're going to see that it in fact goes to a different position every time you turn it on. And I should have paused it. Let me pause it. Now, I don't want you guys to sit here and watch it reload again, but this in fact works. It did not go back to the same position. If you recall, the very first time we did it last time, it started with the red pin. If it happens to do it this time, it's just going to be, well, chance, but I bet it won't because I've got a pretty good odds against it. Let's see what it does. Here's a new load. And there we go. Okay, it started over here this time. So this random seed is going to essentially seed it, start it in a totally random position, and therefore you're going to end up with random numbers. I'm going to end this video here, and then we'll introduce a little bit more expansion and then a challenge in just a bit. So play with this, make it work, and I'll see you again soon.